Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Michael, Lisa, Craig, all of the organizers. It's so great to be here with you today. And yeah, this is actually a really perfect segue to Monday's talk about your vision, because I'm going to build on what she talked about a little bit. So I'm Allison Lunest. You were really, really close. And I am a visa specialist and author of a book called Foolproof French Visas, which I'm going to give you a link for so you can download it for free at the end of this talk or during this talk. So I have been helping people move to France since about 2012, actually doing it as a service. And I've been writing about it since 2010. So I originally came to France as a student in a study abroad program, and I really wanted to come back. I spent my whole year or my whole second semester of study abroad, like strategizing for how I could get back to France. As Monday talked about, I didn't necessarily have a vision for what I was going to do long term after I got back to France. So I do agree that that's really important. But basically, I came back as a student, enrolled independently in a master's program in a French university. And I was fortunate in that, I already spoke French at a pretty high level. And so was able to do that and get student visas. And ultimately, I transitioned from being a student to marrying my husband. So my visa situation was relatively simple. But what happened was when I came back and started and enrolled directly in the French university by myself, I didn't have all of that support that I had the first time around in the study abroad program. So I had to do my own visa. I had to do my own health insurance, find my own apartment, all of that stuff all by myself. And this was kind of my first experience in adulting at about 22 years old. So I started writing about that. And then ultimately I turned that into helping people actually go through the process of moving to France on their own. So today I'm going to talk about getting the right visa for pursuing your dreams in France. And as Monday talked about, it's really important to have a vision when you're going to get started with your move to France. And for me, the main reason that you want to have that vision of where you want to be is because that's going to impact your visa type. I want you to think about, when Monday was speaking about your vision and what you want to feel and be and do and have when you're living in France, I want you to think a little bit about what inspired you in that and what kind of images came into your own mind for the type of life that you want to create for yourself in France. So during these talks, I want you to imagine your best life and like all of the things that you would do if you could do anything you wanted. And I want you to think for about 15 seconds. Don't think too much about it. Just write down the first couple of things that come to mind. 5 years into the future, you're living in France, you've created your dream life. What are the 3 things you're doing in your life and career? I'm going to give you about 15 seconds to think about that or write that down. Okay, so no matter what you've written down, whether you've written down, working in some kind of company in your dream job, or having your own business, or being an author or some kind of artist, it is possible, and it's possible for you to do that in France. And if you haven't figured out how yet, it's not your fault, because as Monday talked about, and as I can attest, there are a lot of moving pieces. Like, you have to completely give up the life that you have now in order to build the life that you want to create for yourself in France. And to add even another layer of complexity, we know that French bureaucracy is notoriously difficult to navigate, even for French people, especially if you don't speak the language. And it can be really scary to create this dream life, especially if you're trying to do it in a new country, in a new language, and you need to make sure that it's built on a solid foundation. And there's nothing wrong with being completely overwhelmed and if you haven't figured out what to do. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you the 5 steps that you need to follow to bring your dream life into reality in France. So here they are. 1, create your vision. I am a big fan of having an idea of a specific and actionable plan about where you want to be in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years. Now, your vision can evolve. Of course, it's going to evolve as you go through the process. But I can tell you the most successful visa applications, the best projects, are the ones where you are very focused. They draw on your skills and experiences. They show a clear direction and have a clear plan for generating income. So ideally, you're also going to have specific reasons identified for why your vision is going to work best in France and why you want to be here. So having a vision is especially important because the different elements of your vision, the different elements of the things that you want to be, do, and have that you're going to get from Monday's workbook are going to determine what potential visa types you can apply for. So there are 22 different long stay visa types. Some of them can eventually lead to residency and naturalization as a French citizen. Others are going to be for more short-term projects, or can lead to, some visa types can lead easily into other visa types. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to identify all of the different major aspects of your vision, especially focusing on where your income is going to come from, because where your income comes from is going to determine what kind of structures and admin you're going to need to set up once you arrive, because income will need to be reported and taxed in France first when you are a resident of France and having a visa in France. And where you're going to, or how you're going to earn your income is also going to affect the type of visa that you're going to ask for. Certain visa types are incompatible with certain types of income. If you come here on a salaried worker visa because you've been sponsored by a French company, unfortunately, you can't start your business on the side. You would have to leave your company, switch your visa type in order to pursue that activity. Similarly, if you come here as a freelancer or a self-employed person and a company wants to hire you on a longer-term work contract, you're not able to do that without going through a similar sponsorship process to what the company would have to do for hiring a foreigner. So unless you're like the spouse of an EU citizen or the spouse of a French citizen, or you have your own EU passport from another country, it's going to be really tough to do some of the activities that you want to do if you're on the wrong visa type. And it can be a long and difficult process to switch from one visa type to another once you're here. Step number 3 is you're going to determine the most important parts of your vision and a potential timeline, especially if you can't start all of the aspects of your project at the same time. So, for example, as I just talked about, if you want to work for a particular company and have a job, but ultimately you want to own your own business, you're going to have to kind of think of a plan for how you're going to be able to work in the salaried position while building up your contacts so that then somewhere down the line, you can switch into running your own business. Now, this may be at some point you're going to do a change of visa status from being an employee to being self-employed, or alternatively, once you get a 10-year residency card or are naturalized as a French citizen after at least 5 years in France, then you can kind of do what you want. Then you don't have restrictions on whether you can leave your job or start a business or whatever, or if you get married to a French or EU citizen. Andrea asks, do you need a visa if you have citizenship from another EU country? No. So if you have Italian citizenship, Irish citizenship, whatever, you do not need a visa to live in France or any special authorization to do any particular kind of work. My book does cover that in one section, what you're allowed to do as an EU citizen, which is basically exercise your EU treaty rights. Exercising your EU treaty rights means that you live and work in France and can support yourself from your work, and that you're not leeching out of the French system. I'm not familiar with US immigration stuff. So if you tell me what the US EB-5 visa enables you to do, I can tell you what the equivalent is. If it's an investor, if that's like an investor visa or similar. Yes, investor visa. Okay, so there's a visa called Passeport Talent Entrepreneur, which is if you're investing in starting a French company, a minimum of 30,000 euros. But normally it's like you're starting your company, you would be the director of that company, and then so you're creating a job for yourself and ideally for other people. There's no visa particularly, you invest a big sum of money in some other company and then you get the right to work, in something other than the company that you're investing in. So you can't just drop a big chunk of money in an investment and then go get a job somewhere else. There's no option for that, but you can invest in your own company that you want to start. And I've helped several clients do that. So your visa, it's called Passport Talent Entrepreneur. And that's also is one of the visa types covered in my book. So if you have multiple parts of your project, your initial visa type may not enable you to do them all at the same time. And I'll give you the example of one of my clients who may be here today, Cherie, who has two businesses. She's currently an editor and content developer for publishers of French language curriculum, but she also wants to develop her own language learning methodology and potentially a language school down the line. So that's going to be two separate activities. Now, one of those is going to make her money right away, and the other one is going to be a longer term project that she's going to develop during her time in France, and will ultimately require a completely different business setup and probably a shift in her visa status if she's going to start an actual company. So that's one example about how you can plan your visas out over the long term. If you're retired and your income is only retirement-based income, there's a long stay visitor visa that can be renewed indefinitely that doesn't necessarily lead to naturalization or citizenship, but it can allow you to continually renew in France. And yeah, my book covers that, and it also covers some of the tax treaty implications. I did work very briefly for a U.S. tax preparer in France, so I kind of can orient you to. I'm not qualified as an accountant, but I can kind of orient you towards the questions that you need to ask about the income types that you have. I'm going to continue and then come back to the questions because I want to make sure that I get through everything, and I can always answer questions in the chat later if I don't get them right now. So step number 4 is you're going to need to figure out the right visa type for your application. Now, again, if you're married to a French or EU citizen and you have a private life visa, if you have an EU passport, again, this doesn't apply to you, but you do want to select a visa type that allows you to do your most important income generating activities, so that, as Adrian Leeds graciously pointed out in the chat, you do need to make sure your business is profitable. And that's something that the authorities are going to look at a year, 2 years, 4 years down the line to make sure that you're generating income from your business that is supporting you and that you're contributing to the French tax system. So if you want to eventually have a path to getting residency or naturalization, you want to make sure that whatever activities you're doing in France, there are income requirements for each different type of visa. You want to meet the minimum and then also meet or exceed the minimum requirements for applying for a 10-year card or naturalization when the time comes, when you've been in France for at least 5 years. So that's going to be the main goal that you want to focus on during your first couple of years in France so that your visa can be renewed. Now, once you arrive, your 5th step is going to be to begin with the most impactful and the most income generating aspects of your project and selecting the correct administrative structures to ensure that your business is operating, or whatever you're doing is, in all legality. and that you're setting up the structures that you need to be able to renew your business, so when your visa. So if you have a business, they'll check 1 year out to see, has your business been registered? What are your invoices? Have you been generating revenue? If you have a couple of different activities that you need to do, I have one client who is a massage therapist and a chiropractor. Massage therapy she can do in France with no problem without getting any kind of special credential conversion. Her chiropractic activity, however, is a regulated activity in France, and so she has to get special authorization to practice as a chiropractor by submitting all of her credentials for like homologation, like to be approved, and to show that it's equivalent to what a French chiropractor would have learned. So for her, starting one activity, the massage therapy business, can be the first income generating activity that she begins. And then the chiropractic work is going to come later after the approval for that has gone through. So that's it. Following these basic steps are going to put you on a path to being able to renew your visa, and having all of your income properly reported and meeting the minimum requirements, which again are all outlined in my book, are going to enable you to get a 10-year resident card after several years, after 5 years in France. And you can also, if you meet the income requirements, will be able to apply for naturalization as a French citizen. And then once you have the 10-year card or the French passport, you'll be able to have a lot more freedom in what you choose to do for your income. So you can close a business and start another one. You can, quit all your jobs, collect unemployment for a while, depending on the situation, obviously, and retrain to do something completely different. You have a lot more flexibility once you're on the 10-year card or have the French passport, to do kind of whatever kind of work you want, whether it's part-time, full-time, self-employed, in a contract, go back to school, whatever, without worrying about linking it to your visa type. So I know all of this because, as I mentioned, I've been helping people move to France since 2012, and I've written the book on French visas called Foolproof French Visas. It covers the 22 different visa types you can get to move to France. And it covers everything from, what income types you can generate on each visa, what leads to naturalization and residency, what visa types cannot be renewed or switched to another visa type, because there are some visa types where they're meant to be temporary, short-term, and can't be renewed. So I'm actually going to give you a coupon code in the chat right now, so you can download it for free. Normally it's $27. But I'm giving you a coupon code Bloom 2020 that expires on Monday. So you can go and download that for the ebook. It's also in Amazon as a paperback, but unfortunately I can't really do anything about the price for that. There's no way to give you coupon codes.
Allison, thank you. This is great information. There's a lot of questions about visas. About moving to Paris on a blue card, EU talent. Does that offer flexibility for working?
So any kind of work visa, when you are the one who has the salaried work visa, you want to be really careful about switching jobs, at least in the first 2 years. And if you want to switch jobs, you have to make sure that the new job, either you've been in the first job long enough and the new job is substantially similar to the original one, or the new company can take over your sponsorship. That's really important. However, if you are on a passport, if your spouse is on a passeport talent, and you are the accompanying spouse, then there's a visa type called passeport talent vie privée et familiale, and this is possibly one of the best visas that you can get, because it's actually it's a private and family life visa. It's the same type of visa that the spouse of a French citizen would get, and it allows you to do any type of work. So even though your visa would be linked to your spouse's visa, you were able to register as a freelancer, to work part-time, to work full-time, to go to school. You can kind of do whatever you want on the vie privée familiale visa type. So that's a real advantage. If I always advise this, if a couple is moving to France and one of them could potentially be eligible for passport talent, I try to push them in that direction for this reason, because it really gives the accompanying spouse a lot of flexibility in, for example, if it's the business creation visa, they can both work on the business. One of them can be a salary employee, or alternatively, if there's a little bit of a struggle and in the beginning of the business to generate the income, the accompanying spouse can, go get a part-time job to complement the income while they're growing the business. So there's a lot of good flexibility there.
Okay, Allison, you have about 3 minutes. So however you want to wrap up your time.
Okay, so I'm just going to finish really quickly with what I have, and then all of your questions, I do want to get to them, so I am going to answer them in the chat. Creating your vision, Monday gave you a great resource for that. I'm sure she can help you. It's something I also work with with my clients before we start with the visa application, is coming up with a really clear vision, and that's easy peasy. I'm sure that off the top of your head, you can think of all kinds of big dreams that you want to create for yourself. And maybe you even already know, what kinds of income you're going to be generating from the projects that you're going to be doing in your life. If you're a big dreamer like me, the part that gets really tricky is to determine, like I said, what's allowed on your visa, what's not. Do you want to stay in France long term? What do you want the option to do? And that's something that my book can help you with. So you have the link for that. And then finally, the most challenging parts can be presenting your plan and your project in a way that can accompany your French visa application, show, exactly what your skills and talents are, what you're going to be contributing in France, and having a really clear and focused proposal for, especially if you're applying for a business or a self-employed or an artist visa, or even a student visa, what you're going to be doing, and then knowing what admin needs to be done once you arrive, so your project is on solid footing and you're really set up here to stay. So the best thing for you to do is to focus on your project and your vision, and to get the results you want, focusing on your dreams without having to worry about doing all of this, we call it paperasse, on your own, and trying to, and getting lost and distracted with, all of the different questions you can have about visas and French administration, and how to make your dreams actually manifest and happen in France. So if it's all right with you, I am going to answer all your questions in the chat, and I will be back at the meet and greet. But I'd also like to offer you the opportunity to get on a call with me if you want to tell me about your dreams of living in France, if you want to tell me about your vision and talk about what kind of visa will support that vision, and what support you'll need in order to feel like you can pursue these dreams in France. I'm happy to have a 30-minute chat with you, a transformation clarity call. So I'm going to give you the link for that in the chat as well. I do about 5 of these a week. And they're completely free. There's no obligation. I just want to hear about your plans and see if there's a way that I can help. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'm gonna get your questions in the chat.